Welcome again to MP Nights. What a night, Man, I walked in tonight, honestly, and this is odd, but I about started crying because there was such a good-looking crowd in here. And I was like, what in the world? Because about 2 years ago, we started dreaming, planning, thinking about, praying about this service, this gathering, and I never could have imagined that there would be just all of these fantastic people sitting out here. So thank you so much for being a part of MP Nights. We believe that something is happening here, and I hope you feel that way. What an incredible, incredible beginning. We started with a little Kendrick Lamar, Pride, to tip our hat. It's just a tip of the hat to where we're going tonight. We're going to be talking about Pride. But we also got to experience music in a profound way. Music has this way of allowing us to take things that are true and throw it alongside a sick beat or some sort of delicious melody. And it connects with us, it moves us, it gets inside of us. And I hope that happened for you. We're gonna end tonight with a song that it's my jam. It's my summer jam. You know, we got summer cups in the back. You might be looking for a summer love, and tonight you're gonna hear my summer jam. So yours might be I'm the One by DJ Khaled, but mine is what's coming up later on. So I love this series. I love this idea. Particularly, I love this artwork. This might be my favorite artwork of any series we've ever done. Emotional, shout out to the art. I love that, people of the arts. Emotional, Allison, you think so too? Was that what that was for? I love it. How good, I mean, it's so good looking, you know? Emotional hygiene, practices for maintaining healthy emotions. Practices for maintaining healthy emotions. Now, I don't know, I would imagine that at some level, you have some interest in maintaining healthy emotions. I don't know if that's actually true, but I'm going to assume that it is true, that there's some form of you, some part of you that says, yeah, I should be as healthy emotionally as I can be. Here's why. The healthier you are emotionally, I think the healthier you are as a human. Your emotions have so much to do with your everyday, day-to-day, decision-driven life. That we make decisions out of our emotions. And if our emotions are running us, then we tend to be unhealthy. But if we can become healthier emotionally, then we can be healthier people. We can be better friends. We can be better boyfriends, better girlfriends, better husbands, better wives, better sons, daughters, dads, moms, whatever title you have in front of your name. So this is really important. In fact, I'm 37. My wife, we just got a new minivan, and so we're pumped about life. So that just shows you where I am in life, all right? So my life's over. You still got life ahead of you. We've got 4 kids and 1 on the way, okay? We just went on a trip a couple weeks ago. No, it was probably 10 days ago. We had to fly to Massachusetts for my wife's little brother's wedding, and we were walking through the airport, and a dude just looked at us and goes, that's like a city moving through the airport. And I was like, hey man, back off, bro, you know? Like, nobody asked you anything, first of all. Like, secondly, what are you looking at? That's what I thought, you know? That's what I said to him, right? Then we got in a fight right in the airport. We didn't, but I recognize the fact that my life is over. I also recognize the fact that you have some life in front of you, okay? So congratulations, don't take that for granted. Enjoy that, okay? When you have more life in front of you than you have behind you, that's when you know you're really living, okay? I say all that to say, I read a lot of leadership books. That was all a setup to say I read a lot of leadership books, okay? Some might say it was a waste of time. Some might say it was fluffy. I say it's getting somewhere. It's linear. It's all leading to something. I read a lot of leadership books because, I don't know, I feel like it's what I should do. It should make me better. But my favorite book I've read recently on leadership, it's actually been on my shelf for a long time, and I actually came back to it just recently. Had to read it for school about 5 years ago. It's a book called Primal Leadership by Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman is a Harvard Business School professor. He's kind of the Lord of emotional intelligence, okay? That's the title I have given him. He does not claim that title to himself, but he is the godfather of emotional intelligence. There is intelligence, there's just being smart, and then there is emotional intelligence. And he says more important than having great IQ, this is good news for those of you that don't like your IQ. More important than having a great IQ is having great EQ. And this is encouraging to me because all of us can work on our EQ, our emotional intelligence. How well do you know your own emotions? How in tune are you with what you're feeling, what you're experiencing? And how well are you able to control your own emotions in response to other people's emotions, okay? So it's about being aware of your own, but then it's also about recognizing yours, recognizing theirs, and being able to control yours in response to theirs. And he says he did a big research study. He said, I looked at hundreds and hundreds of CEOs, top-level executives of the business world, and I compared and contrasted them, trying to find out what are the unique qualities. And he said, good news for those who don't have IQ. It wasn't IQ that was the common trait among great leaders. It was strong EQ. It was emotional health, emotional awareness, the ability to understand, recognize our own, and control ours in response to others. Here's what he says in chapter 1 of Primal Leadership. I'm just gonna rip this quote straight out of Primal Leadership. What an aggressive name too, right, of a leadership book? Primal Leadership, okay? This is not like sophisticated leadership. This is like primal leadership, like at the gut of it. Here's what it's all about. This is what he says. Because emotions are so contagious, especially from leaders to others in the group, leaders' first tasks are, and if I were writing, I would have put an ellipsis. I'm in love with an ellipsis. Greatest form of punctuation. Anybody in school right now, is ellipsis an accepted form of punctuation now? Because it wasn't when I was in school. But now it's just like, it's like, I have a hypothesis about such and such and et cetera, ... Like you can just finish that thought later on. It's like, wait a second, I need to know where you're going with that. But the ellipsis, you're like, no, I'm just gonna leave you hanging. I'm just gonna let you know. It's just like, it's coming later, but just don't worry about it, okay? After the R, I would have put ... Here's what he says. So he says the first tasks of any leader, because they're the emotional guide, the first task is this, the emotional equivalent of good hygiene, getting their own emotions in hand. So he says the primary task of leadership. Now, I recognize we're not talking about leadership tonight, but I'm using leadership as a metaphor for what we're going to talk about later on. But he says that the leader's primary task, because they are the emotional guide of the group, is to make sure that they have emotional hygiene, the emotional equivalent of good hygiene. He says, you shave your pits, your legs, your face. I don't know what you shave, but you shave, you brush your teeth, you use mouthwash, you bathe so you don't get a staph infection, right? You take care of yourself, you have hygiene, you don't want your breath to stink because you want to hurl at her, so you make sure that you're smelling right. That's hygiene. And when hygiene got introduced into our culture hundreds of years ago, people started to live longer because they realized the better my hygiene is, the longer I live, right? There was a day where people didn't brush their teeth. They still don't. It's in England. They don't do that there. I'm sorry, no shade on England. I know your parents are from there and you're from there, your mom at least. I know, but just every British person I talk to, I'm like, wow, the teeth, amazing. So, but nonetheless, the better our hygiene, the better we are as humans. And so what we found, though, is the same thing is true emotionally, that the more emotionally healthy we are, the better we are as people. That's why we called this series Emotional Hygiene, because we think as important as it is to use deodorant, it's also as important to take care of our emotions. And Daniel Goleman agrees, he concurs with our hypothesis. Here's what he says next, and continue. Quite simply, leaders cannot effectively manage emotions in anyone else without first handling their own business. He didn't put that in there, but that's what he could have put in parentheses, right? That leaders, if you're in a role where your job, particularly in customer service organizations, where your job is to try to help someone else deal with their emotions, if you're a counselor, if you're a therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech pathologist, if you're a teacher, if you're in the education sector, if you work at a hotel, if you are at the front desk at the Ritz-Carlton and your job is to help people process their emotions of why they demagnetized their key and it no longer works and they're angry because they had to bring all their luggage back to you, if that's you, he's saying you can't help other people deal with their emotions if you haven't dealt with your own emotions, right? On the airplane, what do they tell us to do with the oxygen mask? Put yours on first, bro. Don't be trying to help out people. I know you're all selfless and trying to be a good Samaritan. You're just straight Mother Teresa in the airplane, but don't do that. That's right, Mother Teresa, a verb now. He says, no, you put your own on first because you got to handle your own emotions before you can help other people with emotions. Next slide, it goes like this. How a leader feels, thus, becomes more than just a private matter, given the reality of emotional leakage. You woke up this morning and probably didn't think much about emotional leakage, but it's a thing, right? If you're angry about your dad, it will leak out in the relationship you're in right now. And you're like, well, I'm not in a relationship with my dad. I'm in a relationship with this chowdy. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. There is emotional leakage. If you are jealous of your girlfriend, it will show up in your other relationship with friends. If you have a lot of bitterness toward your stepmom, it will show up in your relationship with your kids. That's emotional leakage. He says that's why people have to take care of their own emotions. Next slide, this concludes it right here. A leader's emotions have public consequences. This isn't just a private thing. This isn't just a, well, that's just me, and it's like, you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of thing. No, it's like what's happening right now emotionally will show up in the next decade of life, and the next decade of life, and the next decade of life, and it'll go on. What you don't deal with emotionally in your life will show up in your kids' lives and in their kids' lives. How do I know that? Because the problems that I got as a human are due to the emotional leakage of my parents. I could point straight to it, and the same is true in your life. So all that to say, this series is massively important. I don't know that we've ever done a series quite as important as this. If you want to have any impact in life, if you want to be a better human, if you want to have more of an effect on other people, if you want to be a better leader, if you want to be a better boyfriend, better girlfriend, you got to pay attention to your emotional hygiene. Not just how your breath smells, but how's your emotional hygiene. So here's the way we're defining this. We straight ripped this off from a guy who did a TED Talk on emotional hygiene. Emotional hygiene refers to being mindful of our psychological health and adopting brief daily habits. So it's all about being aware of our psychological beliefs and our psychological state, and then putting into play some habits, some practices. Adam Boyle the first week said this. I love this. I thought this was terrific. If you are lacking self-awareness, you yourself lack the awareness to be aware that you lack self-awareness. Can I get a hallelujah? Did you get this? This is brilliant, profound. This is stop you in your tracks kind of stuff. If you are lacking self-awareness, you yourself lack the awareness to be aware that you lack self-awareness. This is why it is so important. Step one of emotional hygiene is to be aware of where I am. So that leads us to what we're going to talk about tonight, this word, the word pride. Out of all of the dangerous, treacherous, trip you up kind of emotions, this one might be the most difficult to see in the mirror. Most people who are eaten up with pride can't see it in the mirror. They're not aware of the fact that they have it, because if you lack self-awareness, you yourself are not aware of the fact that you lack self-awareness. And if there is pride in your life, you are probably too prideful to admit that there is pride in your life. You know what I'm saying? Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, what is the definition of pride? That's a great question, because that's what's next in my notes. Here's the definition of pride right here. I mean, if you were to look pride up in the dictionary, just be like, thumb through a Merriam-Webster, on a rainy Sunday evening, and you get to P, and you look for PR, and you look for P-R-I-D-E, you find pride, you probably would see the picture of the man who has given himself the nickname named after the one who split time because of the sacrificial way that he gave his life for others, AKA Jesus, okay? Right? I mean, some of you are deeply offended right now because the Life of Pablo has been your album like for the last year, and you've just got it on repeat, and you've been trying to convince all your friends that it should have won a Grammy, that it should have been nominated for Grammy Album of the Year, that it's best album ever, that it's Kanye's best work since College Dropout, and you're like, no, seriously, this is some great work by Kanye, and so you're offended right now. And if that's the case, please, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, okay? I'm not being serious. You do not find Kanye when you look up pride in the dictionary. Are we cool? All right? No? Still not cool? All right, we'll move on. So let's talk about pride. What I want to do is I just want to read to you this story real quickly, and I left my Bible right there, and I have eaten up all of my time with what is not my talk. Thanks, jeton. I want to read you this story just real quickly because I think this sets up why pride is so important. Because I don't know if you've ever thought about the danger of pride, but I guarantee you that whatever it is that you don't like about that person that you used to date, about maybe your dad, about maybe your stepdad, about that professor you had in college, whatever it is that you don't like about Jesus himself is probably pride. There is nothing more dangerous to creep its way into our heart, but there's also nothing that is more disgusting that could be in us. But again, if it's in us, we have such a failure to be able to see it. But it's extremely important for us to at least try to figure out, is it in me? Because it will keep you from something you want, it will destroy your own life, and it will have consequences on other people, public consequences. Just like all of our emotional hygiene does. But nothing destroys relationships like pride. Nothing damages future like pride. Nothing clouds our ability to make healthy decisions like pride. And if you allow pride to live inside of you, to take up residence inside of your soul, there will be consequences down the road. So it's worth spending the next 15 minutes at least evaluating, going, okay, God, do I have pride inside of me? Is there any form of pride in my life? Because if there is, it's at least worth knowing. So here's the story that I want to just read you real quickly. I've been reading through the Bible this year. I finished seminary about 10 years ago, and it took me, I don't know, do you remember any of you played sports and you ran so much in sports, you were like, I'm never going to run again? That's the way I was. I got done playing sports, competitive sports at about 18, and I was done. I was like, I'm so tired of a coach yelling at me, telling me to run. I'm not going to run for the next decade of my life. And so I didn't, gained a lot of weight. And so same thing is true of seminary. I had to read the Bible so much, I didn't want to read the Bible anymore, which is amazing that that worked out that way. But it took me about 10 years to actually want to read the Bible. But now I'm 37, it's been 10 years since I finished seminary, and I'm like, I actually want to read the Bible now. And so this year, I've been just doing like a read through the Bible plan, and I have absolutely loved it. It's been a game changer in my own life. And so here I am in July. It was probably about in March, I was trucking through Numbers, okay? It's probably been a while since you read Numbers. I wouldn't imagine many of you woke up this morning and perused Numbers, okay? But Numbers holds within it the story of Moses, not just Moses, the Exodus, because that is in the book of Exodus, well done. But Numbers is mostly Numbers, yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of boring. It's not that interesting. But when you get to about Numbers 20, there's actually the story of why Moses did not get into the promised land. You know the story of Moses. Moses got all the people out of Exodus. He gets to the Red Sea, and he splits the Red Sea by the power of his staff that God had given him. And all the people rolled through it into freedom, into 40 years of wandering into the wilderness, and God was leading them to the promised land, which they eventually got to the promised land. But did Moses get to go into the promised land? No. If you would have asked me a year ago, why didn't Moses get to go into the promised land? I wouldn't have been able to answer that question. And then I bump into Numbers 20 and I read the story about why Moses didn't get to go into the promised land. So let me just read you the story of why Moses didn't get to go into the promised land and see if you can interpret why Moses didn't get to go into the promised land. So God comes to Moses. The people are angry. They're upset. They ask this question over and over again. They say, why did you bring us up out? I love that. Why did you bring us up out of? That's when you know people are mad. It's like, you brought us up out of. You didn't just bring us out of. You brought us up out of Egypt. And we're angry. You brought us to this terrible place. There's no grain, there's no figs, there's no grapevines, there's no pomegranates. Can you imagine a life where you're angry about the lack of pomegranates? I can't even fathom that life. Now, if you told me that they didn't have any more cuties or clementines or like some peaches, or if you told me they were out of watermelon, I would be like, we gotta talk. Why did you bring me up out of that place where I had all the watermelon? But he's like, they don't have any figs. They ain't got no pomegranates, man. What kind of place is this? And so they're all mad. And then they say, and there is no water to drink. That's serious. Verse 6, Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord said to Moses, get this, take the staff, listen closely, take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink. Got it? Got it. Here's what Moses did. Next verse. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? I don't know why he's got so much attitude, but I think he's angry about the pomegranate comment. Verse 11, then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff, and water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. Now, what's the difference between what God told him and what he actually did? Anyone? He struck it. The first time I read this, I was like, he told him, go to the rocks, just say to the rock, and the water will come out. He goes to the rock, says to the rock, water comes out. What? Like what? Because right after this it said, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. And I'm like, whoa, what? What? I don't even know what he did wrong. But he struck the rock. Now, I don't know why that bothered God so much. That's a pretty severe consequence. Moses had gotten all of the people out of Egypt, got them right up to the promised land that was filled with loads, a plethora of pomegranates. And he stopped short. He did not get to go inside of it. Why? All because he struck the rock. Evidently, God knew that there was something inside of Moses that wanted all the credit for that. God said, hold up the staff and speak to the rock. And when the water comes out, all the people will know that it was by my power that that water came out. But Moses couldn't handle, in that moment, he was tired of God getting all the credit. And the pride in him rose up, and he got so tired of being about someone else and his own selfishness, his inflated view of himself, his condescending view of everyone else, including Creator God, started screaming so loudly that he struck the rock twice and wanted everybody to know it's my power that has brought this water out, not the power of God. And God did not like that. And it kept Moses from experiencing something great, and it'll keep you from experiencing something great. But it wasn't just Moses, though, who experienced this. No, James, the brother of Jesus, comes along a couple thousand years later and is trying to give us the same idea about how much God does not like pride. And so he reaches back into the Old Testament and grabs this statement that I want to talk about for just a few minutes. This is in James chapter 4. This is where we're going to spend the remaining moments of our time. That is why Scripture said, James writes, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. I don't know if you're into memorizing things, okay? But you should remember this. You should write it down. You should staple it. Who uses staplers anymore? You should tape it to your dashboard. Put it on the mirror, on your bathroom window mirror. Put it on in front of your car where you see it. Tattoo it on your leg. I don't know. But don't ever forget this. This is worth holding on to, that God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. What does it mean to oppose? Everybody knows what the word oppose means, but this is actually a military word. This is a term used to say they brought all of their force up against this unit. They brought all of their military power up against these people. That's how strongly God wanted to make sure we knew that God doesn't just dislike, he's not just against, no, but God opposes it. He brings all of his armies, all of his strength. God sets all that he is up against those who set themselves up as proud. You just got to know that if it's in you, this is how much God wants it out of you. That he sets all of himself up against our pride. Anything in us that says, look at me, that has a self-inflated view of ourselves, that's condescending towards other people, that looks at other people and thinks they don't deserve to exist on planet Earth. I'm really the one that life is all about. Anything that wants to make life all about myself, that's inflated pride. And God sets his whole being up. Just think about that. That thunder we just heard, that's like nothing. That's like a sparkler in God's fireworks show. He's got so much power and might, and he sets up all of his power and might in opposition to anyone who sets themselves up in pride. This is serious. But vice versa, it's beautiful though, because then he shows favor to the humble. That God actually gets on the side of the humble. So he's going, hey, it's not all negative. You want the bad news or the good news first? We'll take the bad news. Okay, God opposes the proud. He sets himself up against the proud. What's the good news? The good news is God takes all of his might, all of his strength, all of his power, all of his omnipotence and his omnipresence and his omniscientness and sets it all up on the side of the one who is humble. The one who realizes that my stuff stinks and I don't have it all together and I don't really know it all and life's not really about me and I'm not really that much more important than other people. God takes all of his strength and will and might and power and he says, I'm going to team up with that person. And then he gives us the answer of how do we access this then? And he says this is not a fun word. But he says, submit yourselves then to God. He says, and so if you want to access God's might and his power, then you get on your knees and you submit yourself like someone that just got taken over as a prisoner of war. I'm in submission. I submit myself to you because you're more powerful than me and I want to live. So I'm submitting to you. He says, when you do that, when you submit yourself to God, you get to access. That's an act of humility, and you access all of God's power. Submitting to someone other than yourself is always an antidote to pride. Submitting yourself to someone else is always an antidote to pride. Now, if you don't consider yourself a Christian person and you're like, well, I don't want to submit to God. Like, I don't even know if I believe in God. Okay, try this. Try for just this next week, submitting yourself to other people. Submit yourself to your boss. Submit yourself to your parents. Submit yourself to whoever you're dating. Submit yourself to your friends. Just try it. Try on submission. And what you're going to find is that there is access when you submit. There's access to more power and more strength that's counterintuitive living. He says, submit yourself then to God. And then he says, and resist the devil and he will flee from you. Now, I don't know what you think about the devil, okay? I'm not real into the devil. We just got back from this little trip we went on. We came back and our air conditioner wasn't working. And it's 88 degrees in our house. It's 92 degrees in our upstairs. My wife's 5 months pregnant, and I impregnated her. And So she's not really feeling me right now, if you know what I'm saying. She ain't like vibing with me right now because she's frustrated about her AC. Then, in the middle of the night last night, so we were sleeping. We have a basement that's like not that cool. I know it sounds like luxurious, like we live in a palace basically. But we have a basement, and in our basement, we were sleeping down there because it was 74 degrees down there, which was delightful. And our smoke detector in the middle of the night, about 2 a.m., started chirping, okay? Irregularly. If there's a pattern to it, you might be able to sleep. You know, it'd be like a weird sound machine, but like it would work. But no, this was like just an irregular chirp. Thank you. I don't know if somebody chirped or there was my foot or something, but that was it. Just irregularly. And we woke up this morning, because last night I'm like Googling how do you change a smoke detector, because I'm not that handy, okay? I tried the battery. That didn't work. It was still chirping, so I was like, something's wrong. So I ended up disconnecting all the power from it, which I was like, am I going to fry our whole house if I do that? I didn't know, okay? Some of you are like, oh my gosh, he's an idiot. I am. I'm not like claiming to be smart. I don't know anything, okay? So I was like up on this stool, like in the middle of the night, doing this at 2 a.m. So my wife texted me this morning and she was like, do you think the devil is after us? And I was like, I mean, I know this is not an acceptable answer, texting, moving my thumbs. I know this is not an acceptable answer because I am a pastor and I'm supposed to know this kind of stuff, but I don't know. Maybe. I hope not. I don't know. She kind of caught me off guard with that. You know, it was like 6 a.m. and I'm answering questions about the devil. You know, I'm like, I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm not ready yet. I have taken my ADHD medicine, but I haven't had my coffee yet. So I'm not ready to answer devilish questions. You know what I mean? So I don't know what you think about the devil, but let's just all agree to this, okay? Let's all agree to the Star Wars way of life, okay? That there is a good side and there is a dark side. Can we agree to that? I think that's fair. That there's a good in the world and there's an evil in the world. Let's just simplify this whole idea of saying, submit yourself to God and you will resist the evil and bring on the good. I think that maybe if the devil throws you off, then just go with that. Because basically there's good, there's light, and then there's bad, there's darkness. Like I think we can all agree to that. And if you submit to someone other than yourself, you bring about all the good. You get the good on your side. But if you decide that you want to prop yourself up as proud, then you get all the bad on your side. So you can resist becoming the person you don't want to be by submitting. If you want to resist becoming your dad or your stepdad or that person in your life that you just don't like, that's frustrated you, that's made you mad, that boss that lords his authority over you, or that boss that lords her position over you, if you want to resist becoming that person, then submit. I know it's bizarre, it's counterintuitive. It's like, no, I need to prop myself up and become something greater. The brother of Jesus says, no, that's not the way it works. That God actually opposes the proud, but he shows favor to. He gets on the side of the humble. And then he ends with this massive idea. Come near to God and he will draw near to you. Sometimes it uses the verb draw or come, so I like draw better. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Come near to God and he will come near to you. Listen, pride shuts God out. If you're frustrated because you feel like God has been distant, hasn't been involved in your life, feels like he's been absent, maybe ask yourself, do I have a sense of pride? Have I been living for me? Am I making it all about me? Because pride is a quick way to shut God out. But humility invites God in. Humility is a way to draw God into your life, for him to be a part on your side, for him to be a part of your day-to-day life. It's through humility that you actually access him. So let me just end, and hopefully the last 2 minutes with this, three ideas, okay? Let me just give you 3 ideas that I think any one of us could do. No matter what you believe about God, if you feel like you're a person who has a committed faith, then I think this is more than just an encouragement. I think these are things that we're supposed to do. If you don't consider yourself a Christian, you're welcome to just try these, okay? You can just try them on. Here's the first one. Make your life about others. Make your life about others. Maybe you want to become an Amana mentor. We have an opportunity through MP Nights to mentor some students. Anybody mentoring at Amana this past school year? Anybody in here? There's a few. So all of the 20 mentors that are mentoring are not here tonight, or maybe 15 of them are not, and 5 of them are. Nonetheless, it's not here nor there. Thank you, Jack. Somebody did mentor down the road. Thank you. That's awesome. Yes, there's one. Fantastic. When you go to mentor someone else, it's a practice in your life to say, for the next hour, all right, I'm talking, I don't know how many hours there are in a month, but let's just say there's 100 hours in a month. For the other 99 hours, I'm living my whole life for myself. But for this 1 hour, I'm going to go and try to do something for someone else. Just make your life about others. This is what Jesus did in Philippians 2, says that, hey, he valued other people more greater than himself. That he found out what other people were interested in, and he became interested in that. That he considered what other people needed as more important than what he needed. That's the model of making your life about other people. Here's another thing you can do. Number 2, you can expand your view of God. When you see more of God, you realize how big and how magnificent and how amazing he is, and it does 2 things. That's 4, but it does 2. It makes God as big as he really is in your own mind. You at least start seeing him for who he is, but it also appropriately positions yourself. Have you ever stood at a big ocean or stood like at a huge sky filled with stars, or like at the Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls? Have you ever been to one of these places and you go, whoa, it's huge. And it makes me feel small, but I kind of like it. There's something about seeing God for as big as he really is that puts us in our proper position. That we are this tiny speck on planet Earth. That we're this tiny dot. Even our life, it's just a dash. For me, 1980 to 2039, because that's the year I'm gonna die. I've already learned that. And everything else is just the dash in between that. It's just that one little dash in the scope of eternity. Kanye West's grandkids probably won't even know his name, let alone his nickname. I mean, how many of you know the name of your great-grandparents? Most people don't. I mean, we're like 100 years from no one even knowing about you. And there's something healthy about realizing that. And when you expand your view of God, you see how big he is and how small I am, and it does something healthy. And then lastly, model your life after Jesus. Just try modeling your life after him. He laid his life down for other people. He gave his life up for other people. He designed, he built, he crafted the very hill that he died on. So I don't know how much pride you have in your life. I don't know how much pride I have in my life. But I'm going to give us a few minutes here at the end through the song that we're going to play. That's just a chance for us to ask God and say, God, how much? How much is in me? And whatever's in me, would you take it out of me? Would you allow me to make my life about other people? Would you allow me to expand my view of you? Would you allow me to model my life after the one who gave his life for others? Because I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out on something in the future because of this inflated view of myself, this thing in me that needs to be the man. That ultimately, submission is an invitation. Submitting to God is just an invitation to say, God, come on. I want you on my side. And to get you on my side, I don't make myself bigger. No, I get down on my knees and I make myself smaller because of how big you are. And when I do that, you get on my side. Maybe you've never done that. Maybe tonight's the night. Maybe you literally get on your knees. Maybe in your heart, you figuratively get on your knees. And you say, I've been foolish. I've been living trying to prop myself up, trying to make myself bigger. But I want to submit as an invitation to God to say, come on in. There's a line in the song that says, "You chased down my heart through all my failure and pride." God, He's not just opposed to your pride in the sense that you can never have a relationship with you. But what I found is that in my life, even through my failures and my pride, that God has still chased me. And He's chased after you as well. So tonight, I just invite you, submit. Submit your life to Him. Ask Him to give you the way of humility. And ask Him to remove whatever pride is in you so that you can draw near to Him, so that He can draw near to you.